Good evening, everyone. So hopefully you've had your evening coffee, and I'm just having mine as I'm speaking to all of you. Since this is going to be housed on YouTube, I just wanted to give some guidelines as to how we plan to be housing this video on YouTube. So what we've been doing over the past few weeks is we've been uploading the videos to YouTube, but then we've also been doing very exhaustive details for every video. All right. And it's really cool because we put a list of questions, and along with each question, we also have a timestamp. So if you click on that particular timestamp, then the video will automatically skip to that part of the presentation. And we'll be doing the same thing for this video as well. So we'll be putting down some timestamps. And if you click on that particular timestamp, let's say for the first question, then you can go and look at the discussion that we've had associated with that particular question. So you don't have to watch the entire 1 hour and 15 minutes of the video. You can just watch whatever is the most relevant to you. So this is just a little bit of effort to make things a little easier for you. As with every session, I would like to start with a short introduction of myself. So my name is Karthik. I am the founder of August Academy, and I've been running this company since 2013. It's been a very, very pleasant journey so far. I've had the opportunity to interact with hundreds of Indian students, and I've also had the good fortune of getting them, or rather helping them get into some of the top 20 programs across the world. As you all know, I've had people get into Harvard, Chicago Booth, Kellogg, MIT, Tuck, Darden, Columbia. So these are some top US programs that my students study at. I've also had students getting into London Business School, INSEAD, AGC. I've had people getting into ISB. ISB is like a bread and butter thing. Almost every third person who works with us applies to ISB. And with regards to ISB, I think we have almost a 90-95% conversion rate to the interview stage. And from that point on, it all depends on how well you do in the interviews. We've also had a good number of people get into NUS, NTU, and HKUST. So these are pretty much, and Canada as well, Rotman, Ivy, Queens, Schulich. So these are the main territories that our Indian students target. And we've had our people get into the best schools in each major geography. So today's session, in addition to it being a Q&A, I just thought we should have a theme for it. And the reason I wanted to do it this way is because we've had about 3 1-hour sessions on Q&As. And if you look at it, almost every question that most students have that has already been answered. So I thought we had a choice for today. One aspect would be to rehash and, do another Q&A, which would be useful to a good number of people. But then something that may be even more useful is if we are able to do something that's directly relevant to your application this year. And so from that point of view, I thought it would be good for us to have an essay analysis discussion. So if you guys are ready, please give me 2 or 3 thumbs up and we can launch into the essay analysis discussion. Just 2 or 3 thumbs up. Give me a wave. Beautiful. I can see Mitash is excited. Sarvan is excited. Ronak is excited. Nishi is excited. Great. So keep messaging me. And, if you have any questions, please let me know. And I'll be happy to take any questions. All right. I'm going to be sharing my screen with you. Yeah, please let me know if you can see this. Yeah, I think this is one thing I forgot to copy. So I'm going to be doing that right now. Just hold on a second, please. Okay, we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, can everyone see my screen? So Mitashi has a question. Mitashi, we intended this to be a Darden discussion session. So I would like to focus on this for about 20 to 30 minutes. And after that, I would be able to get to your question. All right, Mitash, sorry, not Mitashi.
Sure.
Okay. And people are able to see my screen, right? I'm assuming that's a yes. Someone can give me a shout out. I can't really see
Yes.
who's, yeah, got it. So how many people are applying to Darden this year? Is it a popular school? Sushil, I can see your hands. Actually, I'm not really viewing the gallery view right now, so people can speak. Let's keep it a very casual session. Okay, Lalita is applying to Darden. Great. So I can see a few hands. Great. So, I mean, what do I remember about Darden, right? So I went to Darden's campus in 2019, right? So in 2019, I went to about 5 campuses in the US. I went to Georgetown, I went to Darden, I went to Duke Fuqua, I went to Vanderbilt, and finally I went to University of North Carolina, Keenan Flagler School of Business as well. And Darden was very impressive. I mean, all the 5 schools are impressive. I wouldn't be able to say that one is better than the other. I think they are all great. And if you get the option to study in any one of these schools, you will be doing very well for yourself. Darden has this really old world charm to it. Okay, so if you look at it, it's in a small village called Charlottesville. It's a very pretty village. I mean, if you see some of those English movies centered in the New England area, right? So that's pretty much the scenes that you're likely to see, the fall colors, the historical architecture. So this is what you would experience there. But do not underestimate Darden at all, because one of the very, very surprising facts that I learned when I went there was that in that particular small village, there was about $60 billion of venture capital. So that's billion, not million, right? Just to put things in perspective, a billion is 1,000 million, right? And then we have 60 of those billions. And let's think about how much time it's going to take, or rather, let me think about how much time it's going to take me to get to the $1 million net worth, right? I mean, it's going to take me a few years at least. And I might not end up with a net worth of more than $10 million at least by the end of my career. And that is a very big deal, because if I were to manage that, then I would be called a very high net worth individual in India, right? So $10 million is a huge amount of money. So multiply that by 100 and then multiply that by 60. And that's the kind of venture capital that's available in a very small village in the Darden neighborhood. So that's where it starts. That's something for you to keep in mind. So Darden is the campus, right? Is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So I hear some background noise somewhere. So folks, please ensure that you are all muting yourselves. Can I do it from my side? Someone has to mute themselves. Yeah, please. Yeah, okay, I think that's fine. So, yeah, Karthik, can you mute yourself? Yeah, great, thanks. So, I lost my train of thought. Yeah. Darden is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Not Darden, but the University of Virginia as a whole. All right. What does it mean? It means the architecture is splendid. It has historical value, and UNESCO has decided that it needs to be preserved. Right. That again was a very surprising thing to me. That is the only site across all of North America that's considered to be a UNESCO World Heritage Site. All right. There's a very big deal because, I live within 60 kilometers of about 3 or 4 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. I'm in Chennai. Mahabalipuram is very close to Chennai, and we have really, really historical cave temples here, and those are considered as historical UNESCO sites as well. And I have 3 or 4 of those in my neighborhood, and then across India we have a good number, right? In the tens, at least. We have Hampi, Uh, so we come from that kind of heritage. We are very fortunate, but North America is a relatively new continent, right? So it's been settled in over the last 300 years or so, and because of that, there's a very short history, and Darden is roughly at the center of where that history lies. Okay, which is something that you need to know about this particular school, the University of Virginia. It was founded by Thomas Jefferson, who's one of the founding fathers of the United States. So again, from an intellectual point of view, this has great pedigree from that point of view. So these are some of the things that you would want to know about Darden, about the University of Virginia, rather. So I'm using Darden and the University of Virginia very interchangeably, right? Darden is the business school at the University of Virginia. If you study there, you would be doing very well for yourself. It's got some of the best faculty in any business school. It's been routinely ranked #1 for having the best faculty by various publications. It's supposed to be a great school for consulting, follows the case study methodology. So these are some of the plus points about that, all right? With that in mind, let's look at the deadlines. We have 4 deadlines this time. There's the early action deadline, 9th September. Round 1 is 6th October, and then we have 5th January, and then we have 6th April, right? So as an Indian student, as much as possible, try to apply within early action or round 1 or round 2. Preferably don't consider round 3, all right? So that would be my advice to you. Now, within early action, right, there's a few things you need to know. You have the option of scheduling open interviews, which means you can actually go to the site and book your own interview, and you don't have to wait for them to invite you to interview. And on the website, at least, they've said that the slots are available from August to late September. Okay, so try to complete your interview before you submit your application. And once you complete your interview, ensure that you actually submit your application and you have not wasted an interview slot, which could have been used by somebody else. There's 2 options. You can choose a binding option or a non-binding option. The binding option essentially means you are committing to Darden that you will take up their offer and withdraw applications from everywhere else if you are made an offer. Think carefully before you choose this. Choose it if you are very, very sure that Darden's your #1 choice. If that is not the case, then it doesn't make sense for you to choose it, because I'm not 100% sure this is legally enforceable or not, but definitely from an ethical and moral standpoint, you are making a promise, which I think you should be keeping up, right? You also have the option of taking the non-binding option, which means you're not necessarily committing, but you're saying you're very interested in that, right? So that's also something that you can choose. So these are some of the things you need to know about the early action deadline. Any questions here so far? Okay, I'm assuming no questions here. So moving on. The requirements are very straightforward, right? At this point, it's okay for you to submit your unofficial transcripts. It would be advisable for you to submit your GRE and GMAT. And in case you're finding it difficult to submit the test, then please, you may request a waiver. The waiver is not automatically granted. You have to make an explicit request for the waiver, and that depends on certain criteria. If you satisfy those criteria, you'll be given a waiver. If you don't, then you may not. So last year, I had a student who applied for the waiver, and he was granted a waiver. He did get an interview invite because his profile was very promising, and he was put on the wait list. This was in round 1. He carried out into the wait list through round 2 and round 3 as well, and eventually he was given a reject. My understanding is they liked his profile, but they wanted to see if he could take the GMAT and provide them with a very good score, right? So I am not very clear about how good your chances would be if you ask for a waiver. I see a lot of students are actually taking the GRE and the GMAT, and they're also getting very good scores. So when your competition is providing the college with very good GMAT scores or GRE scores, there is very little reason for why you should be requesting a waiver. That's my personal stand on this. You may disagree, and I mean, the college allows you that flexibility as well. So by all means, if you have to request a waiver and apply, please do so. The resume is an important document, right? And so Darden is very nice. They've actually provided video advice for how you should be focusing, what you should be focusing on when you work on your resume. But if I had to paraphrase it, they say consider using your resume to highlight your leadership and impact. Talk about what you have accomplished in your roles, and wherever possible, quantify your results. I actually think that's good advice, not just for Darden, but for all business schools. So quantify your results, talk about impact. You don't necessarily have to talk about the details of what you do on a day-to-day basis. This is not a technical resume. This is not the kind of resume you will be putting together when you apply for a new job. You don't have to talk about how good you are at C# or how your code runs in 30 seconds. Those are probably best left out. Talk about the impact that you've achieved for someone. In addition, the resume is also an opportunity to display your personality and offer insights into your passions and interests, hobbies, favorite activities, what kind of books have you read recently, what podcasts are you listening to. And on the subject of podcasts, right, Darden has this podcast called Experience Darden. So if you've never ever heard about Darden before, or if you don't know much about the school, I think they've gone out of their way to provide you with about 100 to 150 half an hour episodes. Please go through the podcast. Please don't say, hey, my seniors are not responding to me. I don't know anything about the school. They've provided you with about 100 hours of content. And I think you should really make use of that if you are very interested in the school, right? All right. So the basic idea is don't just make this about your job. Talk about all aspects of who you are and help them get a rounded overview, right? So that's the basic idea. Just one letter of recommendation, I think that's a great thing. Letters of recommendation is usually where a lot of students struggle. And the fact that Darden's made it simpler by requiring only one, I think we need to be thankful to them. And a few short answer questions, right? And that's, they don't call them essays, they call them short answer questions. And it's true to a certain extent. They're all between 150 and 200 words in length, right? So those are the requirements. We will talk about these short answer questions in just a minute. What resources do you have? Donna Clark, the Executive Director of Admissions, has provided you with a lot of video advice on Darden's official YouTube channel. She's also written a lot of blog articles about how you can write impactful resumes, essays, how you can coach your recommenders. So please go through some of the articles written by Donna and some of the videos in which she talks about how you can make a good application. These are very, very small videos, roughly 2 and 3 minutes long. You really should make use of it. Yeah. Social media resources. I mean, like all other colleges, Darden also has presence on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. It has a podcast, it has a blog. I didn't want to copy paste those links from the Darden blog onto my mind map here. All the links are available on the Darden admission site. So please go to the Darden admission site. From the Darden admission site, go subscribe to their YouTube channel, subscribe to their Twitters, follow them on Instagram, follow them on Facebook, follow them on LinkedIn, read their blogs. And while you're doing all this, follow August Academy blogs and August Academy's YouTube channel as well. I think that's very important to me because I'm putting in a considerable amount of effort getting all this together. So, your likes and shares and subscribes are very valued. But yeah, on the subject of Darden is actually making you all of this information available. It's just out there in the open. And it's really sad. If I go to some of Darden's videos on their YouTube channel, they have less than 500 views, right? What happens? I mean, nobody in the world is making use of this. So it's like a gold mine, go mine it, right? That's my advice to you. There's a lot of very valuable information there, which you can use and which will be helpful for you even as you apply to the other business schools. Um, I will come back to you on the sanity check. I think this has everything to do with the short answers. So we'll, oops. Uh, so let's do, no, I will come back to you on that. So things to do, attend a Darden event. So again, just like they have a lot of passive information available for you through their social media channels, they are also organizing Zoom webinars, and they're connecting through GMAT Club, and they're connecting through Poets and Quants. So sign up for one of their events, attend their event, sign up for two of their events. There's no restriction. All of these are free. So this is something that you may be able to do, right? We'll come back and view the class profile, I think. Let's see if I can find the class profile. Just give me a minute. I'm going to be sharing my browser. I hope you guys can see the browser. Review your application transcript, standardized tests, blog posts. See, I mean, these are the videos I was talking about. Standardized test steps with Donna Clark. She's written about 3 blog posts on standardized tests, 3 videos on resume, 1 blog post on resume. She talks about recommendations. So this is a lot of information, guys. Just try to make the best use of it. Now, if someone can point, yeah, here's a class profile. So this is the class that's just going to be starting, or rather the class that's going to be graduating in 2022. So they've spent about a year in college so far. About 404 students, right? I mean, that's a medium-sized class. There are smaller classes and there's larger classes. Harvard and Wharton especially have larger classes. 35 countries, 24% born outside the US. So most of the folks on this call are from India, or even if they are not living in India, they would be of Indian origin. There are probably 1 or 2 people who are not of Indian origin, but even then, I do believe they may be international students and international applicants. So from the 404 people, we have roughly about 100 people born outside of the US. So that's something for you to keep in mind. 39% women, so about 160 of these members are women. 16% domestic minority. That's something that adds to Darden's diversity, because for the 76% who are from the US, 16% are minority within the US, right? But again, it's not something that's of direct relevance to an international applicant, and that includes most people on this call. 45 consortium members, that again is not of a great deal of relevance to people on this call, so I'm going to skip this. These are numbers that may be of relevance. The average age is 27. So, you know how old you are. So figure out how far away from the average age you are. Average GMAT is 703. You know what your GMAT is. Average GPA is 3.5. Now from India, a lot of people do not have GPAs scored on a basis of 5 or 4.0. That's okay. Just present your GPA in its natural scale, either out of 10 or maybe out of, let's say, 100 if it's the percentage system. My bet, or rather my guess, is that a 3.5 on 4 is roughly equivalent to somewhere between a 70 and 75%. All right. So it's good, but it's not outstanding. All right. So that's the basic idea. I'm going to be adding someone. Just hold on a second. All right. I think I lost it. I'm going to bring it out again. All right. Let's go to admissions. Yeah, there's class profile right here. So just like you have a 703 on the GMAT, the GRE average is 319. I'm still not 100% convinced on whether this GRE is sufficient or not if you get that much as an Indian student. My experience has been that to apply to a school of Darden's caliber, you will need at least a 740 on the GMAT and equivalently a 330 on the GRE. That's what I've seen to work in the past, and that's what I would recommend people to get as well. An average of 5 years of work experience, I think that roughly corresponds to an age of 27. So people finish their college at the age of 22, and by 27, you have 5 years of work, right? 8% military members. Most of these members are from the US. It's very rare for a military member from a foreign military, and we would be considered a foreign country. So hence our military is a foreign military. Not a whole lot of members from foreign armies would be there. But having said that, we do have a sizable number of candidates with a military background from India applying there. So that's something to keep in mind, right? So back to my mind map. But before we get there, any questions so far? Okay, so I'm going to assume that you don't have any questions. And let's see, I'm trying to find my mind map here. Here we are. Okay, great. So these are the questions. The first question here is, tell us what you would want your learning team to know about you that is not on your resume. That's 150 words. Okay. I'm going to take a little bit of a breather here, and I'm going to invite suggestions from the audience members on what can be presented here. Let's take 2 minutes to brainstorm. Does someone want to add something? Okay, this is a friendly audience, right? And hopefully people are not going to be difficult with each other. So please feel free to jump in so that, we can kind of parry with each other and throw ideas.
It could be about hobbies, maybe, because we don't. Yeah.
So that would be Ruchit.
Yes.
Okay. So we have hobbies. By the way, hobbies can be in the resume also, right?
I think it will
What
be
else?
Personal characteristics.
Personal characteristics. That would be Abhinav, I think, right? So when you say personal characteristics, what do you mean?
I mean, like if you have something is part of your nature, which you can't show it on your resume. Want to specify?
Can you give me an example?
Suppose if you are introvert, maybe if you want to show it today and want to present how MBA can change that, maybe something.
All right. What else?
Leadership.
Leadership. Leadership is also present there in the resume, right?
Right.
So what can you talk about that's not there on the resume?
Any personal tragedy which they overcome in short term?
A personal tragedy.
Which speaks about their resilience.
Life-altering experiences or life-shaping experiences. How about that? So it doesn't have to be a tragedy. It could be a happy event also, right?
Tragedy which speaks about their resilience, their strength, overcoming.
So that could be personal characteristics as well. So life-shaping experience is actually something which is separate, right? So I'm going to make it that. Someone talked about resilience, right? That would be a personal characteristic. What else? Okay, let me put the question back to you. Let's not talk about who you are. Let's talk about what you expect in a teammate. So has anyone had this situation at work or in college or maybe in your cricket team or maybe in your book reading club where you thought somebody was not contributing? Or on the positive side, have you had a situation where you thought somebody is a great teammate to have, and he or she is the first person you want on a team if you are given that choice? So what kind of characteristics did that person exhibit?
I guess he'd be a great team player. You could say that.
Okay, great team player. So shall we say team qualities and great team player? But again, it remains to be seen what that word team player means, right? Because it could mean a variety of things. It could mean someone who cooks really well, so you're always happy to go to their place when they invite you to dinner. It could also be that someone who's happy to take care of things when you want a day off, so that someone's shouldering your responsibilities. It could also be someone who's happy to mentor you and coach you whenever you have a question, right? I mean, so the team player itself could have multiple dimensions, right? I'm just going to add that here: coaching, sharing responsibilities, fun person, right? So again, these are also qualities, I think. So maybe I'll add it as personal characteristics only, right?
Maybe someone is like really patient and a good, very good listener.
Okay, maybe someone is patient. Maybe someone is a listener. So let's call these interpersonal qualities, right? So maybe I'll take listener and I'll put that here. Maybe I'll take leadership and I'll put that here. Maybe I'll even put team qualities and put it under interpersonal qualities, right? So that looks good now. So again, I don't mean to go into depth, and I don't mean to brainstorm the essay with any one of you. This is actually the group, right? This is about 20 people on call. And we've all agreed that these are some of the qualities that you like to see in a team player, in a teammate rather, yeah? And I agree. So these are actually some of the things that you can talk about yourself. I think hobbies will probably come towards the end, because you have the option of presenting it in the extracurricular section of the application. You also have the option of presenting it in your resume, maybe not in a whole lot of depth. What you don't have the room to talk about is how your hobbies influence you. So maybe you are a great artist. So what does that mean for you as a person? Maybe that means you actually are someone who can focus on one activity for an enormous amount of time. So that part is not evident in the resume. That is something that you can talk about. So it's not about the hobby, but it's about what the hobby says about you. Life shaping creativity. There you go. Yeah. So let's add creativity as well. Right. So those are some of the things that you can talk about in this particular essay. Life shaping experiences, definitely. There are some of us who've had extremely good fortunes or extremely bad fortunes, and that actually has affected us in ways that a casual observer may not be able to recognize without us talking about it. So if there's something of that nature in your life, feel free to talk about it. There is no compulsion that you need to talk about it. Your personal experiences, your personal problems are personal to you. So if you believe that it is relevant to the application, feel free to share it. Otherwise, there's no compulsion. So while they want to know what kind of a person you are, they don't necessarily want to know everything that's wrong with you or every burden you're carrying with you, right? So if it is useful, share. If it is not useful, then think about why you want to share it, right? And obviously, the most important thing is what kind of a person are you? Are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? What kind of qualities do you exhibit? These are just some examples of qualities. I don't want anyone looking at this video to have or rather carry home the message that these are the only qualities you should be talking about. These are some of the qualities that some of the people on call today said are resonating with them. So you think about what kind of a person you are, what kind of qualities resonate with you, and then talk about those qualities. So this is pretty much what this essay is going to be about. All right. Actually, yeah, I'm going to make this interpersonal qualities on the same level, right? Yeah. So I think now it looks good. So that's the first essay. I'm going to move on from here because we don't have a whole lot of time. Now, Darden strives to, so the second essay is what they call the leadership and impact essay, all right? So Darden strives to identify and cultivate responsible leaders who follow their purpose. So there's a whole lot of adjectives here already. The noun is leader, so they want to know what kind of a leader you are. But they like a certain kind of leader, which is a responsible leader and a leader who follows purpose. So a purpose-driven leader, right? So what kind of value system do you have? Actually, let's add that here too. What are your values? That's also something that you can talk about, right? So they have given you a choice. So I think for some of us who've been in state boards exams or the CBA exams in class 10 and class 12, this is something that we are all used to. We are given a choice of 7 questions and we are asked to respond to about 5 or something of those. So Darden's given us 2 options for this, and they've asked you to respond to any one of these questions. Tell us about a time when you acted with a team to solve a problem or seize an opportunity. What role did you play? What did you learn from this experience? So that's the first option. So how did you solve a problem with a team, right? And the second option is tell us about a time you acted to solve a problem for the greater good. What drove you to this issue and what did you learn from this experience? So the only difference between the first one and the second one is the first one emphasizes working with a teammate or a team, a larger team. The second one does not put that constraint. So it could just be you working by yourself, right? Apart from that, I think both of these are very similar questions. What are people's thoughts on, let's say, option 1? What questions do people have? Is it clear or? So does someone want to give an example of a time when they acted with a team to solve a problem? So indulge me a little bit. Let's not talk about what's going to go into your essays, but let's just think about the last 1 month of your life and think about something very similar. It could simple. This could be about the time you went grocery shopping with your brother, right? I mean, there's a problem that you're solving, which is buying groceries. You're going with your brother, so that's your teammate. Has anyone indulged in some very simple team activity like that? So I want to do a role play with someone here just to explain this question. I think that would make it easier for everybody to understand. So can I get a volunteer? No? Okay, what is scaring people? Why are people afraid to talk? Okay, Abhinav, my friend, please.
Yeah.
So what's something that either option 1 or option 2, what is something that happened to you in the recent past?
You were talking about role play or recent past?
Role play, yeah. I mean, something that happened in your life. Tell me about something that happened recently.
It's not recently. I would say it was 2 years back when I was working in my previous company.
Okay, what happened?
Basically, I was in a gaming company before this, and our teams, engineering and product teams, were divided into 2-3 different games, and all of them were working independently.
Okay.
And what was happening is that there was very less interaction between the team, that much of the code that or features that we were pushing, that was we were doing the same efforts, just that because of lack of communication.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Like,
so what did you do?
So I just took a I would say that the 2 or 3 team leads, I decided to interact with the engineering leads, and we decided that we'll take each feature. Like there is some feature which is supposed to go in other game also, but we decided we will divide that feature, and spend each person will spend time on that particular, or each team will spend time on that particular feature and build it that way so that it can be used for the other games also. It's
Okay.
like a plug and play kind of thing. Initially, the code bases were different, and we were not making it that way.
Okay, Abhinav, I'm going to pause you for a little bit.
Yeah,
Okay. So the details, I don't want the details necessarily,
right.
but broadly speaking, see, what I understood is there are 2 or 3 different teams that you had to interact with. Okay. And they were not communicating well with each other.
Right.
And that is when you enter the picture, right? Now, for all practical purposes, let's take the context out of this picture. The context is not that important. Okay. What do I mean by this? Now, presumably the 3 of you all could have been working in a small garment factory. Okay. One team could be the market assessment team, which is like looking at, okay, young men in the age group of, let's say, 15 to 25, what are they looking at? Young women, what are they looking at? So that's the market assessment group. There could be another team, which is the design team. There could be another team, which is the sourcing team, right? And then there could be another team, which is the operations team, the tailors who are actually getting things together. There's a designer team as well. So there's like 5 different teams. Okay. So it doesn't matter. The context doesn't matter at all. But what the issue here is, these team members are not talking to each other. They are only sticking to their own silos. So what role did you play at that point?
The role was simple actually, to bring, to drive everyone together to do the like build the thing that is not being built for your own team, but it's being built in a generic way. Like we to have a
So you
discussion.
were able to get them to understand that there was a larger purpose to this. It was not just that those teams and their KPIs were important,
Right.
but the company as a whole is important. So you need to be talking to each other and you need to be working together as a larger team rather than as smaller teams, correct?
Exactly.
So
Basically,
that is the role you played.
convincing, if you build something, it's taking X amount of time. But if you're building in a generic way so that others can use, it might take 1.4x, 1.3x. But to convince that if we do this way, it will save time for everyone.
So you have given them a logical explanation for why this is the better way to work, right? Okay, beautiful. Yeah. So what have you learned from this?
So my learning was that sometimes we are putting efforts. We are not really in a company sense. If we say that we are building things, but we are not realizing that some simple changes if we do, or some simple initiatives if we take, we can really improve the efficiency of things. Or we like miss some things when we are building something, or we can, if we think properly, or especially take the initiative and communicate your thoughts to the people where we can improve things. Things can be really improved, and you will be acknowledged for that.
Good. That's brilliant, actually. Let's just summarize everything. So first thing, what we did was we summarized the problem. It could be you working in your company, or it could be the generic garment factory example that I've given you. But the problem itself is something that exists in every setup. Do you agree with me?
Correct.
Yeah. So the role played is you have been the consolidator. Right? You brought people together. Now the lessons learned are efficiency improves as a team. Then maybe logical explanation works better to convince people.
Right.
So again, I mean, these are not necessarily all the lessons here, but this is some summary of what you've said, right? So I think Abhinav's example is not unique to Abhinav's context. It is something that is applicable in a wide variety of scenarios. And this is some example that he has had the good fortune of being exposed to. And Abhinav, I'm sure you've been exposed to other problems in your life as well. And understand that Darden does not just define the negative, but also the positive. So it's not just about solving a problem, which is attacking a negative thing, but also about seizing an opportunity. Maybe all of you together realize that there was a very attractive video game that could be built, and then you kind of found a startup out of it. I'm just offering an alternative, right? But either way, the first thing is spend some time explaining the problem so that the reader can understand what the situation was like. Because they explicitly ask you what role you played, talk about that. The consolidator is just a name that I made up, all right? There is no pressure that you need to make up a similar name. Make up a name, or rather don't make up anything at all, but brought people together. That's the role that you played in this particular context. Helped people realize that there was something bigger, right? So that's the role you played. Explain it in a very short sentence or maybe 2 or 3 sentences. And then what did you learn from this experience? The basic lessons that you carried home from this. So that's how you would approach this essay. Abhinav, you've been very, very brave. So I think I want to thank you and I want to congratulate you. And I want people to show their appreciation for Abhinav as well. If you can just give a thumbs up, wave your hands, show some appreciation for Abhinav. I think that's very important. Everyone, not just Abhinav. Yeah. Richard has some. Yeah. Thank you. All right, Abhinav. Thank you so much. Shriram, I think I saw you raise a hand. Do you want to contribute? Are you still with us, Shriram? Okay, let me just take a couple of minutes to offer my commentary on the second option. It is very similar to the first option. I don't think there's any difference. The only difference is, it doesn't necessarily have to be a team-based situation. All right. So it could also be from a situation where you acted as an independent or an individual agent. All right. The difference between the first one and the second one is in the second question. In the first one, they say, in the team, what was your role? In the second one, they're asking you what drove you to this issue, or rather, why were you passionate about this, right? So that's the difference. Shriram, do you want to work with me on question number 3? Or does someone else want to work with me on question number 3? This is the very, very popular diversity question, right? So let me read out the question. The Darden School develops practices and cultivates a culture that reflects and incorporates the worldviews of its many community members. In this inclusive culture, the community learns important and sometimes uncomfortable lessons from one another, resulting in a more conscientious global leaders and citizens. Please respond to one of the following prompts. And these are 2 prompts here. Share a time when you learned something related to diversity, equity, or inclusion that was previously unknown to you. How did this experience impact your perspective? And the second one is share a time when you advocated for a perspective, identity, or community different from your own. How did this experience impact your worldview? Does someone want to contribute here? It can be a fictional story. It doesn't even have to be a real story. What I'm trying to get people to do is I'm trying to get people to understand how to write an essay for this. And that would be better to do with an example, a real life example, rather than not a real life example, but a fictional example works well. But some example is better than not having an example. Yes. Okay, now let's leave the question aside. Why are people afraid to speak? Because there's something I can do to make it easier for people to speak up. So now I'm not asking you to answer the question necessarily. I'm just asking you how we can make this a more accommodating atmosphere.
I just think that these questions require a great deal of thought. It's not just something that I am able to think of something on the spot, which is probably why I'm not able to contribute much here.
Okay, okay. So I want to take that pressure off you. I think what you're saying, Ruchit, is that there is a little bit of pressure that's coming up, and especially because you're in an audience. And maybe there is the pressure to say the right thing. But maybe what will it make it easier if we don't approach this as Ruchit, but as an actor? So I mean, you're not representing yourself necessarily. You're representing a character, and you may just be talking from a movie that you've seen. Will that make things easier? Okay, let me.
I just
Yeah.
want to add, Karthik, that I mean, this question in particular is very personal. This may not be a response, may not be something you want to share with everyone.
Okay. Okay. Beautiful. All right. Let's not talk about this question then. I'm not going to be asking people to share personal experiences. What about popular movies or something that's happening in our lives around us? The news. Are you seeing anything related to diversity, equity, or inclusion that you think everybody should be aware of? I'll start because it's easy for me to start. There was this incident with George Floyd in the US last year. If you know who George Floyd is, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't know who George Floyd is, then just Google up George Floyd, right? So that was a trigger point for a lot of people to be talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, right, around the world. But what about in India? I mean, do you think we have a equitable society in India? You've seen movies like Article 15 and all that, right? Pretty hard-hitting movies. So we've not necessarily had the most equitable society from a community point of view or a caste point of view, but we don't even have to get that far, right? Do we have gender equity? I mean, are we necessarily giving boys and girls the same opportunity?
No, we're not.
We are probably not, right? Something that we don't talk about a whole lot in India, and something that's been talked about in the West for the last 20 years or so. I mean, even there, it's not been talked about longer than that. There's the whole issue of LGBT rights, right? Like, I don't know, I mean, are we necessarily treating our LGBT friends? Well, this is probably a group of people who are highly educated. So whatever answer you're going to give me from your personal experience is probably not the broader answer we are looking for from across India, like the entire cross section. But from the cross section, we see a lot of transgender people, right? I mean, forget how you respond to transgender people. Do you think society as a large treats them properly? So I'm not.
No, Karthik, they are not supporting them properly.
So society is not supporting transgender people, right? And inevitably, what that means is they are ending up they don't have professional opportunities. I mean, it's as simple as that, right? And if you don't have professional opportunities, then you resort to theft at the end of the day, or anything else that is shady and nefarious, right? So what I want you to think about from this is maybe you have a personal experience, maybe you don't have a personal experience. That's okay, right? So last year, the Darden question said, tell us about a point of time when you engaged with a perspective different from your own. And maybe they thought people were facing difficulties with that. So this year they actually modified the question. They offered a choice as well. So it's not just that they modified the question, it's also that they've offered you a choice of 1 and 2 questions, right? The first one is about what did you learn about diversity that you did not know previously? Okay, so there's a transgender person out there on the streets. what did you learn about him or her that you did not know like 5 years ago? I mean, that's something that you can answer, right? And based on what you learned, how exactly did your perspective change? And I've just offered you something, right? I mean, it could be that you learned about it the first time in this particular call today. And what did I say? The transgender person, simply because of the way society treats them, does not grow up to become a doctor or an engineer. They do not get into mainstream professions very easily. And as a result, they end up in shady and nefarious professions. Now, what we need to be doing to help them out is not necessarily police them because they're doing something bad, but rather provide them with the right opportunity so that they don't get into uh, negative routes for how they shape their life, right? So I'm just offering you an idea, and I'm sure there's other things that you are experiencing around in your life as well. Gender imbalance or gender inequity is something that we face in our life at home. So think about that.
Um, let
Yes,
let me
please.
share something about gender equity.
Mhm.
Actually, a very recent occurrence in my company. It's a pretty small company that I'm working for currently, and I was tasked with growing the team. So I'm
Mhm.
essentially in charge of recruiting. And one of the platforms that we use for hiring is IIM Jobs,
Okay.
where you have this feature to tag the job as diversity friendly.
Okay.
So I was making use of this feature, and my seniors came across this when they were reviewing my job postings on the platforms, and I was pulled in to respond to why I had done this.
Mhm.
Uh, and I was actually asked not to do it because that creates the impression that it's actually biased towards females, whereas
Okay.
it's just an effort to make it more inclusive in the first place. So what I realized is that
Mhm.
a lot of people still don't acknowledge that the problem exists.
Okay. There you go.
Uh,
So let's see whether this fits with option one or option two, right? Uh, yeah, I think this fits more with option one because I think the lesson that you learned from here was that a lot of people do not still acknowledge that a problem exists, right?
right,
Uh, I do believe this needs a little bit more work to shape into one of these two answers, but I
right.
think it's a good starting point. It's definitely uh, an experience, an exposure, right? So I think from that point of view, this is very valuable. Thank you for sharing, Sarwan. And like we did for Abhinav, I think Sarwan, we owe you gratitude as well. So we need to acknowledge Sarwan's contribution. So a show of hands, please.
Thank you.
Let me also add what we did last year. One of our successful candidates just talked about how he interacted with his grandmother on something, all right? And I do believe that this is also something that we experience in our lives every year. Well, the diversity happened because this student of mine grew up in the US. So he was of Indian origin, but he was American in thought process, right? His grandmother was someone who grew up in India. So I mean, obviously they would meet every summer. Obviously they love each other. There's a lot of affection. It's family. So I mean, there's no hatred necessarily. But what this person talked about was how they differed in terms of their thought process on one particular issue, and that was simply because they were different in terms of age groups, and they were different in terms of uh, not upbringing because they are both from the same family, but probably in terms of this Indian communal approach versus the American individualistic approach, right? And so even though this person was not American, he was an Indian origin American person, right? But the fact that he grew up in that environment meant he had a certain perspective to things, right? And his grandmom, who grew up in a different environment, had a different perspective to things. So that's what he talked about, and it worked very well. So you don't have to talk about something very hard hitting. It could be something very close to home as well. The example I've given you is from last year. It was an answer to a different question. So I mean, these two questions are a little different. But the broad idea here is diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's everywhere around you. So just look around yourself and find a simple example. The first one is very easy. It just says, hey, if you don't know that some people are being treated differently, and if you just got to know about it very recently, when did you learn it? What was the trigger incident? And how has your perspective changed as a result? Right? It's very simple. The second one takes it a little bit beyond, and it says, when did you advocate for a perspective different from your own? In fact, the example Sarwan presented could actually be presented as an option to this as well, because I mean, it all depends on whether that was the natural perspective you held or it was different from the original perspective you held, right? All right. So closing the discussion on this one.
Karthik,
Goal.
I also had the same question on this. So like option 2,
Okay.
so says about advocacy. So you can advocate it with your parents also, because you have a generation gap or some friends who had a different upbringing. So I think we can share those examples also, right?
Yeah, I believe it is possible. I don't want that to be a blanket answer that I'm giving you.
Right.
I mean, it depends on a case by case basis, but broadly speaking, that could be a different perspective too. Yeah. And I know that we do it with our friends all the time. I mean, we debate just for the heck of it. Whether we believe in something or not, we take a stand and then we build a debate around that stand. Now, you may just want to talk about how you did it in the case of a serious issue, and that could just be it.
Right.
Thank you. Goals essays are very, very easy. So talk about what you want to do. Choose a legitimate post-MBA career goal. Then talk about why this is of interest to you. Then talk about what skills, knowledge do you have that will allow you to succeed in that role. How does it align with your long-term goal? So that's about it. It's as simple as that. All right. So that is the goals essay. Moving on. This is the Batten Foundation essay. So if you could choose any location in the world, where would you want to travel and why? There is no right answer or wrong answer to this. I'm just going to be sharing my window. Just hold on a second. I need to find this thing. Yes. Let me share something else. Yep, I think we are in the right window. So Darden offers this worldwide learning opportunity. So if you look at it, the schools connect with over 80 countries every year. And then, how does it do it? There's a Darden worldwide course, there's a global project course, there's an exchange program. So these are some of the opportunities available to you through the full-time MBA. So what's a worldwide course? If you look at it, there's a global immersion course, which is a 9-day course held outside the US. And likewise, there's all these client courses, and then there's these exchange programs. So you may read through this website to figure out where Darden students have gone in the past, and that will give you some insight into what has happened in the past. Now, when there's 80 countries available, obviously there should be something that is of interest to you. This could be something that's just a personal interest. There could be additional professional interest in the sense, hey, I'm someone who wants to be in the luxury industry. So where do I want to go? I want to go to Switzerland because that's one of the places where luxury is treated as a main industry, right? Or I'm someone who cares about high efficiency operations. So I want to go to Japan to understand how their Kaizen framework works. or I'm someone who's interested in technology, so I'll stay in the US, or maybe I'll try to get a different flavor and go to the UK, right? Or I'm someone who wants to understand how developing economy works. So maybe I'll travel back to India and then I'll help other people travel back to India as well. Innovation, Israel, large scale manufacturing, China, textiles, Bangladesh, right? The tea industry, maybe South India, Sri Lanka. So there is no restriction necessarily. Think about what is of most interest to you and then talk about it. And then they just want to understand why this is of interest to you. They're not judging you for it necessarily, but this is the web page that you need to be looking into, right? So that's it from my side on Darden. I'll try to see if I can take a few questions, but if someone joined us just for Darden, I think the main part of my presentation is over. Does anyone have any questions? I'm going to switch headsets. Just give me a minute.
Hi, Karthik. This is Arvind. Can you hear me, Karthik? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Yeah, can people hear me?
Yes, Karthik. Now I can hear you.
Yeah, I think I kind of froze up for a little bit. So what was your question, Arvind?
My question is kind of a difference between doing 1 year program in US and in certain B schools in Europe require you to have probably a master's or a CA or a CFA. But the same is not required in Europe B schools. Or if an individual who doesn't have this MS, CFA or CA, how can he overcome and do still 1-year program in US?
See, in the US, the default option is the 2-year MBA. Okay. So that is what they consider is the basic minimum required for management education. And they offer a 1-year program to someone who's already had advanced exposure. So you can't go around that. If you are a very senior candidate, you may consider applying for an executive MBA program. But if you are not a very senior candidate and you will be looking at regular MBA programs, then unless you have prior management education or, like you said, a CA or a CFA, I think getting into the 1-year program is going to be very difficult. And there are only 2 or 3 1-year programs anyway, the regular level. Kellogg has one, Columbia has one. Cornell, NYU, they have a few as well. So Cornell, you can get in if you have a master's degree, and that could be in anything. That's the Cornell MBA. And the Cornell Tech program, I think it's a 1-year program. And the NYU Tech also, I think it's a 1-year program. I'm not 100% sure. I need to double check this. But that is also possible. Yeah. Any other questions? I actually, because I had to log out and log in again, I lost all the questions that were there on the chat window. Does anyone have anything else?
Hi, Karthik. Yeah, I have 2 years gap between my 12th and engineering. So do I need to explain that?
That should not be a huge problem, especially because it is not even going to make its way into your resume. Your resume is going to start from your your college first year, right? But then, if there's a legitimate reason for why you had a 2-year gap, talk about it. I mean, there's no harm. I'm sure you had a legitimate reason for that, right?
Yeah. And also I have 10 years of experience in IT. So by the time I'm entering into college, I will be 34. So I have around 10 years of experience with HSBC and JP Morgan with GMAT 720. So do I stand any chance for UVa Darden?
There is no age restriction necessarily, but typically 10 years is way on the higher side. Think about whether you need a regular MBA or an executive MBA. That's one decision point that you need to make. And apart from that, a 720 is going to make things difficult as well. All right. So Darden, maybe I'll ask you to leave out Darden from the consideration set. Maybe you can focus on colleges ranked somewhere between 18 and 30 if you're looking at US colleges. Yeah.
Okay.
So Mitash has a question. I have 70% in class 12, 63% in from NIT Kurukshetra. Post that, I've got around 7 years of experience as an analyst in different firms. I've got a GRE score of 327. Okay. What are the range of ranked colleges I can try with 327? I think you can try like 25 to 35 or 25 to 40, somewhere around. Increasing your GR score will actually help. So by all means, even if you have a good academic background, I think increasing your GRE score will help. So don't hesitate.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
got it.
Anyone has any other questions?
So like I just wanted to continue on this like 1 minute. If given my weak academic background, if I have to apply for Darden, let's say, so what kind of score should I be targeting this time?
So you will need at least a 740 plus, or equivalently, let's say a 332 or something.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Any other questions?
Karthik, I wanted to ask that I have 2 questions actually.
Go on, Abhinav.
Some of the colleges have a early decision round as well as round 1. So what is the difference between the two, and are the chances of scholarship equal in these 2 rounds? And the second question is that in the top 15 US programs, which of the programs are known to give, scholarship to Indian students. I've heard that Darden is one of them. Like it provides scholarship to Indian students and all. So these are the two.
Okay. So I think all schools are reasonably generous with regards to scholarships. So the question here is how easy or difficult is it for you to get in? So there are some colleges where you will just about squeeze in. Okay. That college, whatever that college is, may not give you a scholarship. If you apply to a college that's about 3-4 ranking points below that, that college will give you a scholarship, right? So that's the basic idea. It's very similar to the age-old question we have in India. Should I get into mechanical engineering at IIT Kanpur or computer science at IIT Gandhinagar, right? So that choice, how you take it up, is up to you. What was your other question?
So yeah, the difference between this early decision and round one.
Got it. Yeah. Now, wherever there is a binding of, so first of all, when you apply an early action or early decision, you are indicating to the college that you are very interested in that college. And because you are saying that you are very interested in the college will consider you more favorably. So that is the general understanding here. But that makes sense only if you choose the binding option. Okay, what is the binding option? We had a very short discussion at the beginning of our call today. When you take up the binding option, you're essentially committing to the college that you will join them and you will withdraw applications from every other place, right? And there's no going back on it. So if you take the binding option, then definitely the odds are more favorable to you. It doesn't mean they will automatically give you the seat or anything, but definitely your chances of consideration are the highest. With the non-binding option, it really doesn't matter whether you apply in early round or round one. It shouldn't make a difference. Early round, round one, round two, roughly the chances of admission are the same. I would say early round is slightly better. R1 comes second and R2 comes third, but they're all very similar to each other. And of course, the scholarship kitty is shrinking as you move from early round to R1 to R2. Okay, doesn't mean in R2 it is non-existent. It will still be there. Okay, and if you're a good candidate, you will still be able to get a scholarship. And a lot of my candidates have got scholarships in R2. So always focus on getting a profile in order first, and don't stress out about R1 versus R2. That's stress that is unnecessary for you. There's another thing that you need to keep in mind. Do not apply to two colleges in early round with the binding option. If you get into both, then you will have to say no to one. And that means regardless of the fact that you're keeping your promise with one college, you will be breaking your promise to the other college. So that's also something that you need to think about.
Got it. Yeah. Thanks, Karthik.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Can I ask Karthik?
Yes, Arvind, please.
Yes, I have 10 plus years of experience. I'm not interested for executive MBA because it is not as tough as the MBA programs considered by the companies all. Do you recommend for a 2-year MBA in US? Because I want to work in US, not in any other continent.
Yeah, then you may not have a choice. You'll have to go for a 2-year program in the US one. And you'll have to explain clearly why you are picking the regular program as opposed to the executive program. So these are additional considerations that you can put in your goals as well.
And in your personal opinion, how are the opportunities for people getting, 10 plus into 2-year MBA, especially if there have been outliers?
We've had people on the other side of 30 get into regular MBA programs. It's not something that happens very commonly. It's not something that we recommend also. But we've done it in the past. We do it every year, not at some random time in the past. It's something that we commonly do every year, and it's the ground reality is that there's no issue. Okay, but it's just a little bit more difficult. That's all.
Any recommendations on for people like this? Like you said, it's a tough. Any recommendations or any advice?
Yeah, I am not sure about recommendations, but there's a blog article that I've written that I can share. Just hold on a second.
So what it recommended says that if he wants to give Gmail ID instead of professional one, so do we need to ask only professional IDs?
Preferably get it from the person's professional email address, because that's like giving a letter on the letterhead. If you don't give a letter on the letterhead, then seriousness goes away, right?
Okay.
But if there's some very, very unique reason for why this person is not able to give it from their email address, then I think you need to have a conversation with the AdCom members first, get their permission, and then get it from Gmail.
Okay.
Karthik, one
yes,
more.
Abhinav. Mm-hmm.
So I've heard that if the colleges you are interested in, if you are interacting more with the AdCom members, it fares well for your application. Is it true?
AdCom members, students, maybe alums as well. By all means, I think you can interact with them. Mention their names in the essays. I think that will help you.
What's 3.5 GPA in percentage?
It's a little hard to convert, but I think I mentioned it right. I mean, maybe about 70-75% roughly.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't hold me responsible for this. I'm not. I'm just giving you a guesstimate. Just report it in your native scoring system, and 70%, 75% should be good. All right, folks. I just had a question. The first 3 web sessions that we did this year were question and answer sessions, and today we had a themed session. Is it useful to have a themed session, or is a Q&A better?
Yeah, I think the session was
Q&A. I like the Q&A.
You like the Q&A, okay?
Because it had more varieties of questions from different people, and it answered most of our questions.
Okay. But yeah, but I mean, we also covered a sufficient variety of questions. I think that's why I wanted to do a theme today. But if you want to access those previous recordings, they are available in our YouTube channel. So by all means, go back and revisit those videos. We put in a lot of effort to do the timestamps, okay? Because it actually required us to go through the entire video, figure out what questions were asked, and then figure out what time in the video the question was asked, and then code it up and all that. But you'll find it very useful because you just have to click on it and then it will automatically take you to that point in the video. So by all means, make use of it. Subscribe to our channel as well, and do a like thingy, and that will be useful for us. So we are about 24 minutes over time today. So we'll close the call today and we'll meet again in 2 weeks, all right? And maybe I'll speak to some of you over email and phone as well, somewhere in the middle. All the best.
Thank you, guys.